Hi, I'm Kim, and you're watching Kim Wilson TV. My channel is dedicated to helping victims of narcissistic abuse get free and stay free. Before I get going with this video, I just want to take a moment to thank our friend Rafi very much for your donation to our channel's PayPal account. I really appreciate that, Rafi. Thank you. Financial abuse is a very real aspect of narcissistic abuse. Now, as many of you know, I was a jewelry artist most of my life and have had quite a bit of success in that area. Now, during the time I was involved in the relationship with the narc, of course, my jewelry business was absolutely destroyed, but not only had it become non-productive, non-lucrative, it had become a source of emotional pain for me. It become a real thorn in my life because my confidence around my ability to create art jewelry was gone. And there had been so much abuse associated with that. Trevor had dumped my studio. He had stomped on and smashed my things. I was left with a mess I can't even describe, the mess I was left to clean up. Everything that had once been beautifully sorted and organized was now just in a heap, broken, damaged footprints on everything. And now in just, boxes. It was an absolute mess. So there was a tremendous amount of anger and frustration and heartache and confusion around, how that ended for me. So when I considered picking it up again, not only did I have to overcome my own personal insecurities, I had to overcome all of this other stuff that was associated with it. And I know many of you would benefit greatly and really make huge strides on your healing path if you were able to restore some of these aspects of my life. I do believe in many ways I've restored this aspect of my life, and I want to talk about that today. Oops, pardon me. I said I believed you would benefit by restoring aspects of my life. I meant your life. When I first got free of the abusive relationship, as you guys know, I had been living in Alberta and I returned to Saskatchewan to a small heritage home that I owned. Now, I had everything with me. I did get out with my personal belongings, thank God, and I did have all my jewelry components. Now, over a lifetime, that looks like about 10 giant Tupperware containers, like those big ones, that people use for their Christmas decorations. Anyways, those. And what had once been, individually packaged, organized, I mean, my studio had been very beautiful. Now was just a mess. Everything out of the containers, everything in just a heap, broken, damaged, dirty, just thrown into these bins. It was a complete nightmare. And as you guys know, I was in Saskatchewan at my little house in a very remote community. And though Jacob, Eddie, and Exton did live with me, it was pretty hit and miss as to whether or not the boys were there because, of course, they have a very cool older brother in Toronto that they would often go see. They had brother in Alberta who's got a lot of stuff going on and, quite a public figure. So they were often doing things with him and helping him with his big projects. And quite frequently, I was there in Rock Glen by myself. The kids would be gone. And sometimes for weeks or a month at a time. And many, many times I went upstairs, I opened up my storage, and I pulled out the bins. And I would look in there and just start bawling. I mean, absolutely heartbroken. Now, for those of you who make jewelry, you know what I'm talking about. If you've never made jewelry, I'm just going to let you know that a career jewelry artist has got literally 1 million tiny components. Now, as the components are purchased, of course, you open that package and you isolate that in its own container. Now, what had happened with mine was all the containers got opened, they all got poured into the floor, the cement floor of a garage, and then they got stomped on. So everything just got picked up with a dustpan and thrown into bins. It was bad. So there was a lot of, oh, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, the anger, the frustration, I can't even describe it. It's just, oh my God, who would do that to somebody? Like, who would do that to somebody? Completely unprovoked. I mean, no logical motive for ever doing something like that to anyone. Yet there I was, sitting cross-legged on my floor, sobbing, looking into, I knew at that point there was no way to salvage this. There was no way to fix this. I mean, this would have been 2 years of work if I flew at it 18 hours a day, every day. I mean, billions of microscopic components. It was undoable. So what had happened to me was I had lost the will to make jewelry. It just seemed like this unconquerable nemesis, this black pit that I had fallen into and I was never getting out of, and there was no way to save it, salvage it, restore it. It was over. It was done. And I didn't make that connection exclusively to that mess. I made that connection to jewelry design as a whole. It just seemed to me like the thing I needed to let go of. Though there was this constant longing, it was something I wanted to challenge again, but there was just all this really horrible negative energy associated with it. I couldn't find my way around that. When I sold my house, I sold everything. I mean, literally, we walked away with not much more than the shirts on our back and small carry-on, suitcases. We had nothing. Everything was gone. Now, I did keep all of the jewelry components. My son Jacob had them in the back of his truck. He eventually took them to a family storage facility in Alberta where they still sit to this day. Okay, so that's it. I've cut those ties. I've given up. And I am bothered by this. I am truly bothered by this. And I remain bothered by this. Well, I've been away 3 years now. So yes, I did remain bothered by this. I felt like that wasn't his to take. That was mine. That was something that personally belonged to me. That was a skill set that I possess. That was years of successes and challenges. My work has appeared in the Italian Vogue and many other very famous publications. I've worked with many Canadian artists, making them very unique jewelry pieces for the Juno Awards and other, award ceremonies and concerts. And I just felt like that was mine. Like he didn't have the right to take that from me. So it had been nagging me. Now, of course, I get to Puerto Vallarta, and it's still nagging me, and it's bothering me, and, I am sick of having this thing in front of me, this anxiety, this frustration, this annoyance, because that's what it was. It was this nagging, and it was sitting in front of me, and I decided, damn it, I gotta get over this thing and get it behind me, one way or the other. So I reached out to some local Vallarta artists, and man, there are many of them, incredible artists of every description, from photographers to musicians to organic growers and producers, and the list just goes on and on. So I know I'm in an extremely creative community, so I reach out to some artists. I say, hey guys, want to talk about starting an artist incubator? Well, they do want to start talking about, lots of them. I mean, leather crafters, holistic medicine crafters. It's insane how many wildly creative people there are here in this community. So yeah, they want to do something. We start getting together, we start meeting with each other. And of course, high season was nearing. And I thought, okay, like here I am talking to people like I'm a jewelry artist, but I've got no jewelry. I couldn't even show people a pair of earrings, if my life depended on it. So I decided I was going to make some jewelry. I went out with very limited funds in an area that really is not known for a lot of jewelry components. I mean, this just isn't jewelry component central. So supplies were very limited. I had been able to source out a few shops. And with my limited finances, I was able to purchase a few things to get started. Now, high season came around fairly quickly, as a group, as a collective of artists, we realized that we were getting too far into high season too fast for us to pull this off this year. So though we stay in communication, we have decided to put that off to low season to give us those months that we need to get things set up so we're in position for next high season. Okay, so anyways, but as I'm talking to people, I'm meeting people who have got art galleries and other types of shops who say, hey, Kim, I'll sell your work. You know, why don't you open a pop-up shop in my shop? Or why don't we do something together? And as I mentioned, I had nothing, but I had been able to source out a few things, which put me in a situation which was now, you know, do or die, gun to my head. Here I did claim I was a jewelry artist, so now I got to put my money where my mouth is, and I got to come up with something. And I did buy a couple of very basic tools, nothing fancy. And I thought, this is okay. Now, I don't have a lot to work with. I had a very, very tiny budget, but I could now really challenge my skill set without all the fancy materials, without all the fabulous components. I really was left depending on my skill set, my imagination, my creativity to create some pieces that would sell. And so I made some things, and they were not great. I will admit that. Felt very mechanical, almost like a commercial line, what I would call jewelry, not art jewelry. But I made it, I got it placed, and it started to sell. And as it started to sell, it created a small stream of income. And what I did was I took that small stream of income and I reinvested it, and I started to order from overseas. So I was starting to get some components that would work better for me. And the jewelry line started to get better, and then more of it was selling and more money was coming in, and I was able to then, you know, divide that money and start taking back, you know, part of my initial investment, using the other part of that money that was being generated to reinvest. And what ultimately started happening is I was no longer making what I could, because that's how I started out. I didn't start out making what I wanted to. I made what I could based on what I had available to me, and that was it. That was all. And the ball just started rolling. And very quickly, now I'm 6 months in now, so after 2 months, I was starting to get better components. After 4 months, I was actually thinking of jewelry collections I wanted to make. Money was coming in, so I could then source out materials that I needed. I was able to order those, which then got the whole product line looking much, much better. And I was able to charge, you know, considerably more money for it, and more money was coming in, and the ball started rolling. And now I'm 6 months in, and I will say at this point I do have a fairly well-established home-based jewelry business. I'm not making what I can, I'm making what I want to. I'm able to place regular orders, you know, as a result of sourcing out the types of materials that I want based on the design ideas that I personally have. And yes, the ball is rolling. Am I anxiety-free? Well, of course not. I think artists by nature are a little insecure. I mean, you're coming up with an idea, you're making that idea manifest, you hope people like the idea. So, you know, I think by nature, artists have a bit of self-doubt and insecurity, and I do believe that I have that, but at a very manageable and very normal sort of level for an artist. I don't feel any way associated to what happened in the past, because I guess walking away from all of that and starting again, and starting with very little and really having to make an incredible effort to get this going has given me a sense of pride. Like, I feel pretty good about it. You know, this didn't take me years to accomplish. I mean, literally, I'm 6 months in, and I am, you know, designing lines, I'm sketching lines, I'm sourcing out materials, I'm creating the product line, and it's selling. And I believe this one step at a time method to restoring an aspect of your life that you were robbed of. I mean, literally, we're robbed of these things that are important to us, stolen from us, taken away under horrible conditions. But one step at a time is the solution. And that first collection that I did, yeah, I felt a little bit embarrassed. I knew that wasn't up to par for, what I believed I was capable of doing, but I was tremendously grateful that I had that opportunity, because that's what I needed. I didn't need everything to be perfect. I just needed a crack. I needed the door to open a little bit so I could just start wiggling my way through. So I could start somewhere. I needed to start somewhere, and I did, and it's turned out beautifully for me. If you're a photographer and your confidence is rocked, if your photography hobby or career has been damaged by the narcissist, guess what? Restoration starts with one photo. Just get out there and take one photo. If you're a writer, get that first word on paper. If you're a clothing designer, just get that sewing machine pulled out. Just start sketching, start thinking, start doing something, because that's how we lost everything. Step by step by step, gradually, and then poof, it was gone. And that's how we're going to get it back. Step by step, one day at a time, one bead at a time. And guess what? 6 months later, I've got a fairly successful jewelry business. Now, it's not a flood of money. It's, I refer to it as an additional stream of income. It's kind of like a trickle, but nonetheless, it's moving. And it's growing and growing with each and every passing month. With each collection, I get a little bit closer to where I want to be. I'm so glad I took the initial steps that needed to be taken to restore my jewelry art career, and I know if you just take that first step, things will fall into place beautifully for you too. Guys, I love you lots, and I really encourage you to take back those parts of your life that were important to you and that were stolen from you. I'm Kim. You're watching Kim Wilson TV. I hope you're having a great narc-free day.